Developing right now on Morning News Now, federal fight, a new set of legal challenges for President Trump and his administration. This morning, the president turning to the Supreme Court to preserve his sweeping tariffs. Plus, a federal judge orders the unfreezing of billions of dollars in grants to Harvard. And on Capitol Hill, Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. set to face lawmakers over changes at the CDC. We will bring you the latest. Also this morning, Republicans under pressure to back the release of all the files in the Jeffrey Epstein investigation as some of his accusers join a bipartisan effort to force a vote in Congress.
They want everything released.
Congress must choose. Will you continue to protect predators, or will you finally protect survivors?
Now, survivors threatening to put together their own list of people in Epstein's circle. We'll bring you the latest. And developing news, we are tracking fire and flood watches across the U.S. In California, several fast-moving wildfires scorching thousands of acres as crews struggle against the hot, dry conditions. And a series of storms stretching from the southwest to the northeast. We will have your forecast. And finally, are you ready for some football? That's right, the NFL's regular season kicks off tonight with last year's Super Bowl champs taking on America's team. We'll have all the excitement ahead of tonight's highly anticipated matchup, plus what teams to watch as the regular season begins.
Good to have you with us. I'm Joe Fryer.
And I'm Savannah Sellers. Thanks for starting your morning with us. We're going to begin today in Washington with President Trump calling on the Supreme Court to save his sweeping tariffs. So the president filed an appeal late last night asking the justices to quickly reverse a lower court ruling that found they were illegal. His Solicitor General pressed the high court to hear arguments as soon as early November, writing the stakes in this case could not be higher.
From the Trump administration's economic policy to its controversial health policy, today HHS Secretary RFK Jr. is heading to Capitol Hill. Now, this was initially supposed to be a hearing on next year's health care agenda, but after the sudden firing of Director Susan Minares, some senators are gearing up to grill the health secretary over the recent chaos at the CDC, and that includes some Republicans.
I told him, I said, your job number one is to restore the confidence of the American people in the institution of public health in America. So far, he hasn't done that. All I see is chaos.
This as Florida became the first state to announce plans to end all vaccine mandates yesterday, including for kids in schools. As you can imagine, that is getting a strong reaction from the medical community. We will chat with NBC News medical analyst Dr. Vin Gupta about what the experts say about vaccines as we head into the fall. First, though, let's go to our senior White House correspondent, Gabe Gutierrez, for more on the politics of all this. Gabe, good morning. Let's start with this legal fight over the president's tariffs. They are still in effect despite these now 2 losses in court for the Trump administration after small businesses sued. The administration wants the Supreme Court to try and intervene pretty quickly here. What's the argument?
Joe and Savannah, good morning. As you mentioned, the Federal Appeals Court has left these tariffs in place until at least mid-October while this appeals process plays out. And you're right, this is just a huge policy shift for the administration, a policy critical to what the president's been doing over the last several months. And what the administration is arguing now in this appeal is that, yes, they believe that the president does have the authority and did not overstep his authority by imposing these tariffs, but they're asking the court to expedite its review of this because it is potentially stalling sensitive diplomatic negotiations, and that's why this has to be done more quickly than a typical case, according to the administration. Now, it is possible that oral arguments might not start here until early November. Still a lot of questions about how this plays out, whether these tariffs, which are now set to remain in place until mid-October, what happens then. But either way, the administration, in filing this appeal, not only filing an appeal, but filing a motion to expedite, meaning they want the answer to this very quickly, Joe and Savannah.
Gabe, I want to ask you about a different court battle, something we just mentioned. It looks like the president appears to have lost, at least for now, on this one. This is this Harvard funding situation. A federal judge in Boston ordered the Trump administration to unfreeze the billions of dollars there in research funding that was supposed to be earmarked for that university. The White House had frozen that money. Our viewers might remember they had said that the university's failure to deal with anti-Semitism on campus was the reason. The judge didn't appear to see a connection between the two. She actually wrote wrote in her order that the government used anti-Semitism as a smokescreen for a targeted, ideologically motivated assault on this country's premier universities. Gabe, is this the end, then, of the funding fight for Harvard? What happens next?
Not quite, Savannah. Look, the judge did acknowledge that there was at least some anti-Semitism on campus at Harvard, but then said that that really had nothing to do with pulling federal funding, that one didn't have anything to do with the other. So, yes, the judge reinstating those $2.2 billion in funding for Harvard, but it's unclear whether Harvard will get that immediately. Again, the administration plans to appeal this case and continues to make the argument that this judge, in their view, is appointed by President Obama and is an activist judge. They're trying to make that argument. And this is something that we've seen time and time again from the administration, this battle between the executive branch and the judicial branch. So this fight, no, it's far from over.
And Gabe, before we let you go, let's talk about the legislative branch and RFK Jr. He goes before the Senate Finance Committee today against this backdrop of the recent chaos at the CDC, much of it centering on vaccine policy, which we'll dive into more in a moment. What can we expect today?
Yeah, certainly. And it's not just the chaos at the CDC. You mentioned this, that yesterday the state of Florida moving to ban all vaccines in that state. And so this upheaval in the public health community really across the country. Now this hearing, we expect a very contentious hearing where lawmakers are expected to grill Robert F. Kennedy Jr. over his stances on vaccines and his firing of the CDC director, which has also prompted several other top officials at the CDC to resign. And so, yes, we expect a grilling on Capitol Hill today.
All right. Gabe Gutierrez. Gabe, thank you so much.
Well, as RFK Jr. prepares to face those tough questions in Congress, health officials in Florida are announcing plans to end the state's vaccine mandates. Now, many in the medical community are warning it could have a dangerous impact on public health. NBC News correspondent Ann Thompson has a look at the motivation behind the move in the country's third most populous state and how some other states are now forming an alliance to spread the word about vaccine recommendations amid a lack of leadership at the CDC.
The battle lines over vaccines drawn along state borders. Florida now planning to eliminate all vaccine mandates, even for schools, although shots will still be available. State Surgeon General Joseph Ladapo.
Every last one of them is wrong and drips with disdain and slavery. Okay? Who am I as a government or anyone else, or who am I as a man standing here now to tell you what you should put in your body?
Among the vaccine mandates that could be erased, measles, chickenpox, polio, and hepatitis B. Medical experts are alarmed.
And we'll continue to accumulate more and more unvaccinated people living in Florida who are under age 5, who will, over time, become a walking time bomb in terms of a potential outbreak. 3
other states, California, Oregon, and Washington, are forming a health alliance to provide their own vaccine recommendations. Citing the recent firings of experts at the CDC, they say the agency has become a political tool that increasingly peddles ideology instead of science. The Department of Health and Human Services rejecting that claim, saying policy will be based on rigorous evidence. Now even Republicans on Capitol Hill doubt if HHS Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. can rebuild trust.
There's just been too much chaos. It's a goat rodeo over there.
Ann Thompson, NBC News.
For more on this, let's bring in NBC News medical analyst Dr. Vin Gupta. Doctor, good morning. So first, if we could just kind of zoom out. I mean, vaccine, there's been so much conversation, right, about them, especially since COVID. But if we just think about, like, even the Hippocratic Oath, this code of ethics standards doctors swear to uphold, chief among them is first do no harm. Given what we know about the safety and effectiveness of vaccines, especially ones that kids have been getting just to go to school for decades, does this violate that in any way, would you say?
Good morning, Savannah. Yes, it does. Personally, I think this is scandalous so far as it pertains to public health, and it's sycophantic. I mean, this is not out of the norm for Ladapo, the Florida Surgeon General, to do things that have no grounding in evidence or in the principles of public health, but, you know, to further some other political aim. And just to say it to your listeners, you know, Savannah and Joe, Non-medical exemptions for vaccines exist in Florida. They exist in most places across the country. They've been increasing in Florida. So this is performative. This is not substantive.
Let's talk about Florida. It's a huge state. The latest census says, 21 million people live there, not to mention a massive tourist destination. So what might happen in Florida if people stop getting vaccinated against things that are highly contagious, potentially debilitating, like measles, polio? Is it possible we could see an impact in other states outside of Florida?
Absolutely. My hope here is in states that have at least 94% coverage, Joe, for childhood vaccines. That's the level that we feel we need to root out an outbreak. So-called herd immunity we talked so much about during COVID applies to measles, applies to polio. In places like Florida, though, they're flirting with a dangerous threshold there, where polio exemption rates are high enough in those places that herd immunity level is not getting reached, or we're right at the precipice. It's about 92, 94% there. And so what does that mean? That means that in elementary schools across Florida, perhaps other parts of the country, I think they're the canary in the coal mine, they're going to see outbreaks of vaccine-preventable illnesses for children, polio, measles, of course, others potentially. And why does that matter? That doesn't just matter for unvaccinated kids, Joe. That matters for partially vaccinated kids, too. Those that are younger, still in their vaccine series, they could still be exposed. And so this impacts everybody, not just those that are unvaccinated.
What about the CDC, Doctor? How does that sort of what's going on there, this lack of steady leadership, the changes that we're seeing, ultimately impact public health guidance across the country and make it something people feel at home?
I mean, Savannah, we're seeing it play out here on the West Coast. Our 3 states here on the West Coast are banding together to counter the federal CDC lack of leadership. And they're probably going to embrace medical society guidelines, which are good, such as the American Academy of Pediatrics. But this is not the way things should be, Savannah and Joe. I mean, this is creating confusion. I'm getting a ton of questions. Doc, do I need a prescription? Doc, is my insurance going to cover my booster shot? This is not good for anybody. And I should say to the two of you, 80% of Americans, based on polling data, strong polling data, bipartisan support, 80% for vaccine requirements for children in schools. This is not controversial.
So as we head into the fall season, just what's the most important thing you want people to know about vaccines?
Nothing here is new, Joe. No other country in the world is having these types of conversations for a reason, because nothing has changed about the science. These are safe, these are effective. Resources are important. Healthychildren.org, produced by the American Academy of Pediatrics. It's a nonprofit. Great navigable information, Joe. Encourage everybody to go there, and immunize.org for adults if you have questions about adult vaccines.
All right, Dr. Van Gupta, great to see you as always. Thank you.
On Capitol Hill, both Democrats and some Trump allies are joining forces pushing to release the Epstein files. Victims of Jeffrey Epstein and his accomplice, Ghislaine Maxwell, told emotional stories of abuse in the shadow of the U.S. Capitol yesterday. Now those survivors say they will compile their own client list if Congress doesn't bring the files into the light. NBC News Now anchor Hallie Jackson has more.
A rally and a rallying cry.
We will never be silenced again.
On Capitol Hill, pressure building on GOP leadership to back the release of more Epstein documents in a rare alliance between MAGA allies and Trump foes.
What if this was your sister? What if this was your daughter?
Republican Thomas Massie and Democrat Ro Khanna leading the effort to get enough signatures to force a vote to compel the DOJ to release all files. 3 Republican women splitting with the rest of their party so far to back it. One leaving a meeting with survivors visibly emotional. Nancy Mace, who shared her own story of sexual assault, later saying she had a panic attack after listening to their stories. Despite the White House calling any support a very hostile act toward the administration, Khanna nodding to those Republicans backing.
They won't be part of a stunt or a hostile act. This is about standing with survivors.
If all Democrats sign on, as expected, only 2 more Republicans would be needed to force a vote. And as survivors called on members to do so, GOP lawmaker Victoria Spartz watched alongside us after, still undecided.
This is an issue that's important for a lot of American people, so I need to learn a little bit more.
President Trump trying to downplay the spotlight on it all.
This is a Democrat hoax that never ends. Thousands of pages of documents have been given, but it's really a Democrat hoax.
Mr. President Donald J. Trump, I am a registered Republican. There is no hoax. The abuse was real.
Survivors now pledging to compile their own so-called list of people they saw in Epstein's circles. As one told us,
we'll compile our own list and seek justice for, on our own. I mean, I think that's what's going to happen next.
House leaders and the White House say this particular congressional effort is basically redundant, pointing to a parallel push for documents by the Oversight Committee.
Allie, thank you.
More than 300 people have been evacuated because of a fast-moving wildfire in central California that continues to burn. It is part of several burning near Yosemite National Park that have already destroyed 13,000 acres. NBC News correspondent Liz Kreutz is on the ground in Chinese Camp, a historical California gold rush town, with more.
Central California, the center of multiple active wildfires. At one point, 22 burning all at once. So many that officials have dubbed it the TCU Lightning Complex and are using numbers to identify the individual fires instead of names. The mega blaze now scorching more than 13,000 acres with no containment.
The vegetation this time of year is pretty dry, right? It's just a very combustible environment.
The most destructive of the fires, the so-called 6-5 fire, which ignited late Tuesday near Yosemite National Park after a lightning storm and quickly spread through Tuolumne County, forcing evacuations as it tore through Chinese Camp, a small historical gold rush town that was settled around 1850 by Chinese miners.
It's gone. This is what you have, what's left.
Images showing the aftermath, a post office among several structures destroyed. The Beal family owns the Chinese Camp store and had to get out within minutes. While their home and business survived, they're worried about the recovery.
What is it like to see so much of the town destroyed?
I just feel so bad when I see on the news. I just really want to cry. It's all my friends.
The fire among dozens of blazes burning across the state amid dry, hot, and in some places stormy conditions that prompted 10,000 different lightning strikes Tuesday. In Los Angeles, firefighters rushing to stop a brush fire threatening homes in the Hollywood Hills, water drops helping to knock it down. Meanwhile, in Washington state, the Rattlesnake Fire burning over 4,000 acres. This, the stunning view from a U.S. Air Force plane dropping retardant over the flames as fire danger continues across the West.
Our thanks to Liz Kreutz for that report.
Let's get a check on what kind of conditions they can expect in California today. It's your Morning News Now weather with Angie Lassman.
She's also tracking the cold fronts and rain pushing eastward this week. A lot going on as always. Hey, Angie, good morning.
Guys, good morning to you. A lot going on indeed. We, of course, are going to be keeping a close eye on California. Still seeing some of those ingredients there for difficulty when it comes to firefighters battling those. And we've also got still some fire alerts that are up across parts of Washington. Notice Spokane, Mount Rainier. We've got these kind of red flag warnings that are going to stay in effect likely through the day today. So again, watching that region as well. We know that we've been dealing with warmer than normal conditions for a prolonged period. That heat wave, of course, doesn't help. And on top of it, we've got these isolated dry storms that are going to be likely across this region. And we know that lightning, always something that we watch for to kind of spark some of that. I mentioned the heat alerts, and you can see some of the overlapping areas. Again, Spokane down to Pendleton, really including much of the Pacific Northwest again today as our temperatures surge above 10 to 20 degrees above average for this time of year. Kind of more of the same of what we've been dealing with, which means the 90s are on tap yet again. Not quite as oppressive, but we're really only talking about a little bit of a break or improvement, I should say, in those temperatures across that region. So we're still going to hit the mid 90s in places across Washington state. Meanwhile, a cold front is ushering in some cooler air across the Midwest. So you've got just 62 for Minneapolis, and that kind of ends up leaving us with some cooler air in place for tomorrow as well. High 50s to mid 50s across parts of the upper Midwest. But notice the high 90s stick around in the Pacific Northwest. And really, that's what we're going to be talking about across that region, at least for the next couple of days. We will see mild conditions for the Northeast and the Great Lakes and the Midwest as we get into the weekend and beyond. The South, though, does remain quite warm with temperatures in the 90s and mid 80s. This morning, though, take your umbrella with you if you live across parts of the Northeast and New England and, of course, the Ohio Valley and the Great Lakes. That's where we have some rain, and it's going to be kind of a dual threat. We've got one cold front that's going to work through, bring us some general thunderstorms across the Northeast today. Then a secondary front that brings us more rain to the upper Midwest. And then, guys, we kind of have this rotating in of these showers and a couple of thunderstorms over some of those same regions in the next couple of days. The important thing, though, we do have a developing drought across that same region. So, again, much like what they're dealing with in the West, we need the rain. We'll take it. We could pick up maybe an inch or so by the time we get through the next couple of days.
All right. Thanks, Angie. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Well, if you were waking up hoping to retire today because you hit the Powerball, you're going to have to head off to work and wait at least a few more days. Not a single ticket, once again, was sold with the winning numbers of last night's draw. That jackpot, it would have paid out $1.4 billion. Billion with a B, indeed. But that means the grand prize is projected to be at least $1.7 billion now. The estimated cash value it's worth is $770 million. That would be the third biggest grand prize in U.S. lottery history. So if you want to test your luck, you've got a couple days before the next draw. That is coming up this Saturday. Every time I keep saying I think it's time to get in it, and I keep forgetting to get a ticket. No.
I'm waiting till it gets to $1 trillion, then I'll buy a ticket. That's what I'm waiting.
It's got a high bar.
We are back with a deadly disaster involving a popular tourist attraction in Portugal. Officials there say at least 17 people have died. More than a dozen others were injured after Lisbon's Gloria funicular-run railway car came off its tracks and smashed into a building on Wednesday. The streetcar is a hotspot for tourists and is said to be more than a century old. NBC News chief international correspondent Keir Simmons has more.
The twisted remains of a terrifying and deadly crash. A tram popular with tourists destroyed after careering down a steep street in Lisbon, Portugal. This video shows the minutes after the crash. Dust clouds in the air. Frightened passengers fill the streets. The tram that collapsed on impact visible as others run to help. When I looked back, I saw the crash, this witness says. Because of the curve, it tipped over and crashed into the building. It made a huge crash. It was packed. Here, desperate people try to help, pulling at debris from the deadly accident. Another tram arriving a short time later, people rushing to jump out of it. Firefighters say it appears a cable came loose, sending the tram hurtling down a hill before slamming into the building. The timing could not have been worse. 6 p.m., the middle of rush hour, as people headed out to enjoy a late summer evening. Police say those killed and injured include international travellers.
There were people trapped. They have now been freed. And we've learnt among those injured, a child.
All right, our thanks to Keir Simmons for that update.
Well, in the Middle East, it's been another deadly day for Palestinians in Gaza as Israel intensifies its attacks. Health officials there say 80 bodies were brought to hospitals on Wednesday. Of those, 16 people were killed at aid distribution points, while 6 died of malnutrition. The deaths come as Israel bombards famine-hit Gaza City ahead of a major ground offensive to capture it. Amid the assault, Hamas said yesterday it was ready for a comprehensive deal that would see the release of all the hostages and the formation of an independent national administration to run Gaza. NBC News chief foreign correspondent Richard Engel joins us now from Jerusalem. Richard, good morning. So we know Hamas has agreed to the last ceasefire proposal that was put forward. That was back in August. Israel, though, did not. What is Hamas offering now? How is Israel responding? Do you think there's any chance on this one?
Well, it doesn't seem like there is any chance unless there is international pressure brought to bear on the government of Prime Minister Netanyahu. Hamas, with Qatari mediation, with the mediation of President Trump's envoy, Steve Witkoff, have come up with several ceasefires. They've come up with several ceasefire proposals, but in each case, Netanyahu's government has said no. They've accused Hamas of changing the deals, accused Hamas of not violating the agreements. This time, Hamas is saying it is willing to do a deal that would see all the hostages freed and establish some sort of international body to govern Gaza. And those are the basic demands that Israel has been asking for from the beginning, an end of Hamas rule in Gaza and the freeing of the hostages. But just a couple of days ago, and by the way, this is not new, Hamas has been saying this kind of thing in the background, telling negotiators that they've agreed to this for months now. Now they've come out yet again publicly to say it. But in a cabinet meeting just a few days ago, the Israeli Security Cabinet refused to even discuss the matter. Instead, Israel is focused on a military offensive, pending military offensive against Gaza City, where roughly 1 million people are still living and sheltering. Some of the people in Gaza City are leaving. They're heading south. They're trying to get out of the way before the offensive starts. They're heading to the so-called safe zone in southern Gaza, where there is very little food, a couple of soup kitchens. There are continuous airstrikes. And as you mentioned, every day, dozens of people are being killed, and the offensive is just ramping up. So unless something dramatically changes, I don't think this ceasefire is going to go anywhere, because it has been on the table and it has been consistently rejected. But what is changing is you are starting to see more and more Israelis speaking out publicly. Here in Jerusalem last night, we went to a demonstration that turned into clashes right on Jaffa Street, which is right in the heart of West Jerusalem, right in the heart of the Jewish part of this city. And demonstrators were blocking the tramways, they were blocking the streets, and security forces, Israeli security forces, came in on horseback, dragging people away, pushing people away. We saw some clashes. So it is not just that that Israelis are starting now to speak out more about what is happening. They are starting to now, this was a relatively small event, but they are starting now with these events to put skin in the game, to say we are not going to do it, and we're going to take a stand, and we will even stand up to security forces to express their point.
All right. Richard Engel on the ground for us in Jerusalem. Thank you so much.
Today, Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky is set to meet with dozens of allies in an effort to try and revive peace talks with Russia.
NBC News correspondent Danielle Hamamdjian joins us now with that and more world news in 60 seconds. Hi, Danielle. Good morning.
Good morning, guys. That's right. We begin in Paris, where the focus there is on Ukraine. The coalition of the willing, made up of about 30 countries or so, are meeting in person and online to finalize plans on one of the major sticking points for Ukrainians, and that is security guarantees the West can offer once the war ends. Steve Witkoff is in the French capital, so is Volodymyr Zelensky, who is expected to speak to Donald Trump later today. Now to the northern Indian state of Punjab. At least 30 people have died there following heavy rains and floods. Nearly 1,400 villages have been submerged, affecting hundreds of thousands of residents. Punjab is known for its agriculture, a major producer of wheat and rice. Much of the land is now under water. And finally, you guys have seen the stories before of paintings looted by the Nazis that have been later recovered. But this one, portrait of a lady that once belonged to a Jewish art dealer in Amsterdam, was spotted, get this, in an online property listing of an estate agent in Argentina. It was hanging in a house that had belonged to the daughter of a Nazi fugitive. The painting was last seen in 1946 and has now been handed over to Argentinian authorities. There is a movie there to be written, guys.
No kidding.
Extraordinary.
Gosh.
Good eye by someone there. Thanks, Danielle. Appreciate it.
Well, coming up, one man speaking out after years of suffering in silence.
I looked sick, you know, not like how a healthy person should look.
But somehow when you looked in the mirror at that moment,
I looked fat.
His story shining a light on a growing problem, why doctors say eating disorders are on the rise for boys and men, and what parents can do to help. Morning News Now, we'll be right back. We're back with a look at a health struggle that often goes unnoticed: eating disorders among boys and young men. Doctors say cases have risen sharply in recent years, and social media is believed to be a factor. NBC News correspondent Liz Croyd sat down with one young man who is sharing his story so others know they are not alone.
Gibson Peckingham was a typical 19-year-old. The year after high school graduation, he spent his free time at the skate park with friends. But inside, he held a secret, a years-long struggle with his body image.
You know, there's kind of like the skateboarding look, and I didn't feel like I portrayed that. 6th grade is the first time I really had to deal with body image and like how I viewed myself. People start to get judgmental in middle school, you know? I was chubby, so I was the ideal target.
Gibson is part of a quiet epidemic. Eating disorders in boys and men appear to be on the rise, now making up a third of all those diagnosed, according to one study.
I didn't eat for a summer. I lost over 120 pounds in less than 6 months.
Gibson's doctor, Shelley Barr, says she's seen the trend worsening in the last several years.
Pre-COVID, when I would work inpatient, it would be for every 10 girls, there would be a boy. Now it's for every 5 girls, there's a boy.
Do you think that eating disorders within men is on the rise, or is it something we're now paying more attention to?
I would think it's both.
Data shows a spike in youth eating disorders at the beginning of the pandemic when hospitalizations increased. How do eating disorders with men, young men, manifest themselves either similarly or different to young women?
I think that many pediatricians, family doctors, internal medicine doctors won't recognize it in men, young adults as early as they do in females. And so it goes unnoticed for a really long time, and the malnutrition sets in and the brain becomes very disordered and very malnourished.
Gibson was one of those patients.
I looked sick, not like how a healthy person should look.
But somehow when you looked in the mirror at that moment,
I looked fat when I looked in the mirror. I saw that chubby 12-year-old kid, staring back at me.
how common is it to see young men who want to be really skinny like Gibson?
It's becoming more and more common. I always look at pre-COVID and post-COVID because I think that was a time of our lives where boys who were used to being outside and used to doing sports and used to running around with a group of friends were suddenly home, and I think much more on social media than ever before.
Online communities celebrating anorexia and other eating disorders have been around practically as long as the internet. But kids and young adults are spending more time online than ever, scrolling apps like TikTok, Instagram, and Reddit, which for many means more exposure to accounts promoting dieting and supplements and feeds filled with heavily edited bodies.
You got 3 months until summer.
Yeah, right there, starve max.
Start with just cutting out one meal from your diet.
Yeah, I mean, he's a model, but obviously incredibly thin. People idolize him.
Dr. Barr helped Gibson stick to a treatment program that with time helped him heal and rethink his relationship with food.
I would definitely say I'm 100% improved, but it's honestly an ongoing struggle.
Today, Gibson is able to enjoy the things he loves, like skateboarding, and plan for his future, going to college and designing a clothing brand. He says he's sharing his story to show other boys and young men they're not alone.
You can't really find stuff about men with eating disorders, and it almost feels kind of shameful to talk about, you know? People look at you differently. I'm hoping to shed some light and maybe give people like the strength to like come out and like talk about it.
Liz Kreutz, NBC News.
Joining us now for more on this important topic, NBC News medical fellow Dr. Akshay Syal. Dr. Syal, good to have you with us. So as we heard in the report there, boys and men now make up about 1/3 of those diagnosed with an eating disorder. What are some of the signs parents should be looking for, especially in young men, in young teens?
Yeah, Joe, good morning. Good to be with you guys. You know, as you heard Gibson say at the end of that piece there, this isn't really something that we talk about much. This is an under-recognized issue, both because it was hard to diagnose men and also because there's not a lot of research out there as far as, you know, how eating disorders actually affect males as opposed to females. And so we made a list here of you know, warning signs of some eating disorders that parents might want to watch for. And, you know, it says on males on there, this is going to be something that you can use for both males and females. And I'll just talk you through some of this. You know, on the left, we have physical signs, right? Signs of the body is changing, sudden weight loss or gain, inability to maintain a normal weight, or you can be fatigued or tired all the time. On the right, you have the psychological, right? The mental health aspect of this. Preoccupation with body shape, with weight or appearance. You know, what this might look like is people who are spending hours at the gym despite looking totally fine and healthy. And you know, if they skip the gym, for example, they find that they don't feel as good. And so the last one there, guys, behavioral, compulsive or excessive exercising, repetitive diet behaviors, meaning you're skipping meals, fasting. You know, there's actually a term, Joe, for this called bigorexia. It's a term that we commonly use for something called muscle dysmorphia, which essentially means that, you know, young males are constantly looking to put on muscle, but they're spending 5-6 hours of the day doing so. And so that's something you want to watch for as well.
Yeah, I've done some reporting on this. I was shocked to learn that even like some of the ways, like the medical guidelines that doctors are given to diagnose, they really only have these specific guidelines for women when it comes to like things with their menstrual cycle and things like that is how they would diagnose something, and it's not the same for men. And then on top of things like that, like even confusion in the medical community, Dr. Sal, we mentioned this in the piece, Dr. Barr said this, that there's this layer of social media on top of it that's like playing this role in just for young men and women in kind of impacting how they see themselves, and like this information right at their fingertips about how to essentially starve themselves. How much of an impact do you think that's had?
Yeah, it's something that we've thought for a while, Savannah, and it's a great point what you brought up there about the diagnosing criteria. That's something that only changed in 2013. But as far as social media goes and its link to unhealthy eating habits and potential eating disorders in males, this is actually something we've studied, and it's been proven that more screen time is actually associated with anabolic steroid use. It's also associated with dietary supplement use, as well as disordered eating. Savannah, just last week I had a young patient, in their 20s he made the appointment with me just to talk about, supplements he'd read online, things like, internet peptides, things that you inject yourself that aren't regulated by the FDA. He wanted to talk about creatine and other vitamins, things that he had all seen on social media, but really had no idea how to navigate all of that out there.
Gibson, who we saw featured in the piece there and was just so informative in sharing his story and letting people know about it, he did that because he wants other boys and young men to know they're not alone. For friends and family who see something, they might think something's wrong, or they're first hearing from someone who's admitting, yes, I have this issue, what can they do to show support and try and reduce some of the stigma around this?
Yeah, Joe, I have to give him a lot of credit for being so forthcoming with his story and for, coming on national television to talk about something that, there's a lot of stigma around, both with females and particularly with males. It's not something that we traditionally associate with. And so some tips here about what families can do. Make sure you are talking to your children about the body images and the stuff we were just talking about on social media, whether it's, advertisement for supplements or gym advertisements, and making sure you're staying alert to changes in body image, right? And what that might look like in a male is somebody who's spending 5-6 hours at the gym might look differently than a female, for example. So it's being aware of those changes, and most importantly, just have the conversation. Find a doctor that you trust. We're always happy to go through supplements, through gym exercise routines, any of those things you can talk to us about. So definitely something you guys want to watch for, both in men and women.
Dr. Sayal, important conversation, some great advice there. Thanks for getting up early this morning to talk with us about it.
Anytime.
All right. Coming up, is the American dream out of reach? New numbers show the price tag for that iconic dream is more, than most people can actually afford.
When we come back, our friend Caleb Silver joins us to help add up the cost. This is Morning News Now. Welcome back. The highly sought-after American dream, that whole concept, right? It now comes with a multi-million-dollar price tag. A new report from Investopedia shows that it costs more than $5 million to afford that dream.
Well, the average American with a bachelor's degree will earn about $2.2 million less than this over their lifetime. Experts say it makes the reality of achieving the dream much harder.
Remember how we said this was from Investopedia? Aren't we lucky that the editor-in-chief is our friend Caleb Silver? He's here to tell us about this report. Caleb, good morning. Always great to have you with us. So what you call this kind of, a dream can look different for so many different people, but you did have this, what you said, classic American middle-class aspiration. There were 8 categories here. Tell us how you did this.
Yeah, our dreams are very different, so they all have different price tags. But when we surveyed our readers and beyond, we found out that people were looking for the wants in life, not necessarily the needs, the wants, reasonable expectations. That's retirement, health care, owning a home, having 2 kids, putting them through college, having a new car potentially every 10 years, and annual vacation with the family. Owning a pet, that gets very expensive over time, and paying for a wedding. Reasonable expectations. Not everybody wants this, so everybody has a different number, but every year we like to quantify this based on today's numbers, based on inflation, and 5 million plus is kind of what you need if you want these things. Again, your dream, my dream, very different, but these are reasonable expectations, and when you think about everything that is rising in price and the things that we really have to pay up for, the big assets, owning the home, really good health care if we want it, retirement, having an ample retirement savings so you can live comfortably for 20 years when you stop earning an income, all of this really adds up over time.
You mentioned retirement. Retirement alone costs more than $1 million, but you found that most Americans only have about $200,000 saved for retirement by the time they get to 65 years old. How does this total cost of the American dream compare with years past? What are some of the things that are just driving up this cost?
Yeah, healthcare is a big one. We're looking at healthcare inflation annually at around 5 to 6%, and those costs keep going up. Now, you can get the very basic healthcare, but if you want excellent healthcare, cover the whole family, that gets more expensive. When you think about buying a home, we talk about this all the time on this program. The median price now around $415,000, $420,000, depending on where you're looking. If you're looking around here, it's a lot higher than that. Again, you could rent your whole life. You don't have to buy all these things, but if you want to put it all together, this is a good place to start. This is the cost of what it means to be you, the you want to be in the future.
Wow. All right, give us some tips. How do we get there?
Yeah,
How do we be financially secure in our future?
Saving and investing. We talk about that all the time, but you got to think about it. You work throughout the week, the work day, 40 hours a week plus. That's you working, but your money has to work all the time. That is the investing and savings part. We always can try to encourage people to start early. The earlier you start, the more time you have to compound. So you got to cover that $2.2 million gap, of course, and then you got to think about what does it really cost to be you today and the you want to be in the future. Work back from that number. 5 million plus doesn't sound like a crazy amount for some people. For some people, it seems out of reach. But if you start with that number, work your way back. You know what it's going to take for you to live the life you want to live.
If you could just save a little every paycheck and you just make sure you always do that, that's just where it really does add up. It's just sometimes hard to get the ball.
Pay your future self. We have to pay our future selves so we don't have to work forever. And then you can have a little bit more financial flexibility when you stop working.
Don't leave money on the table if your company matches your 401k.
There's
a retirement.
That is the easiest money you will ever make.
It's like
when your
kind
company
of the only way I
matches,
know how to say.
absolutely take advantage of that. Max out your retirement accounts if you can. Watch your debt. Be the CFO of your own life so you can look at a number like $5 million and say, you know what? I can actually do that. My family and I can do that if we have reasonable expectations and if we save and invest for the future. That's what you got to do.
Caleb Silver, awesome advice as always. Thank you so much. Really cool report.
Other money news now. Looks like that mega viral yet quite controversial American Eagle ad featuring Sydney Sweeney is paying off.
CNBC's Silvana Henao joins us with that and other Wall Street headlines. Hi, Silvana. Good morning.
Hey, Savannah. Hey, Jill. Good morning to you. Yeah, it really is paying off. Shares of American Eagle soaring as the retailer says its Sydney Sweeney ad campaign is the best it's ever had. The company also reporting better than expected earnings. American Eagle says demand picked up in August. That's when the campaign launched, and it plans to introduce new elements this fall. American Eagle has also been helped by a limited edition collaboration with Travis Kelce's True Colors clothing line. Meanwhile, Tesla has opened its robotaxi app to the general public, allowing users to download it and join the waitlist. The move suggests Tesla will soon roll the service out beyond a select group of investors and social media influencers in Austin, Texas. Tesla also laying out what it calls a good conduct policy, asking people to behave like your mom is watching and be clean. You must be 18 to ride unaccompanied, and no one under 13 can ride in the vehicles. And as you were talking about 401ks before, well, there are now more 401k investors in the Millionaires Club. New data from Fidelity shows the ranks swelling to a record high of 595,000 people in the second quarter of this year. The median balance in their accounts was $1.4 million. Now, Fidelity says this group has been saving for an average of 25 years and have weathered the ups and downs from the dot-com crash to the financial crisis and the pandemic. The strong performance of the stock market helping to propel the average 401k as the S&P 500 gained 11%, guys.
Ooh, there you go. Silvana, thank you.
You got it.
Coming up, countdown to kickoff. That's right, the NFL season officially starts tonight with a classic rivalry, the Philadelphia Eagles hosting the Dallas Cowboys.
When we come back, we'll take you to Philly for all the excitement, so don't fumble, football fans. Morning News Now. We'll be right back. And we do want to bring in senior NFL writer for The Athletic, Zach Rosenblatt, who does not have it. Well, maybe you have a cheesesteak. I'm not sure.
Reveal a cheesesteak
right
to
over
us.
here, actually.
Let's start with tonight. We got Eagles, Cowboys. What do you expect? Does one team need a win more than the other?
I think the Cowboys have had a really tumultuous offseason. Their star player was holding out all year. It was really a public battle between Jerry Jones and Micah Parsons, and they just traded him a couple of days ago. So now they're under a lot of pressure to not let the controversy of the offseason carry into the season. But the Eagles have their own level of pressure. You know, the team that wins the Super Bowl, it's really hard to get back and win it. They didn't make it back from 2018 until a couple of years ago. So I think there's pressure on both teams, but I think the Cowboys need it more because their season can get off the rails pretty quickly.
Zach, other than just matchups, teams, players, there's a lot of other headlines surrounding the league. I mean, several rule changes as we head into the season. There's also 7 international regular season games this year. What are the headlines you're watching?
A big one for me is just 2 teams that have gotten close every year but haven't been able to get over the hump are the Baltimore Ravens and Buffalo Bills. They have quarterbacks Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen, who have been the best players in the regular season for many years now, and they just cannot get over the hump. And I think this is the year they kind of have to do it for their legacy, and that's kind of the biggest storyline for me coming into the season, because everybody's talking about these 2 teams as like Super Bowl favorites, but can they actually get past the Chiefs?
Obviously, yeah. Eagles, Chiefs, Bills, those are teams we talk about often. Is there anyone else you're looking at out there who could surprise the league this season, or anyone who maybe everyone thinks will do well that you don't think they're that great?
A surprise one that keeps getting thrown around is the Denver Broncos. They're a team that kind of surprised a lot of people last year. They made the playoffs unexpectedly. They have Sean Payton, who's one of the best coaches in the NFL. Bo Nix is their quarterback in his second year. Like, they're a team with the best defense in the NFL. And, in the NFC, I think the Lions are a team that just changed their coaching staff out. So on one hand, they've gotten really close, but can they really overcome losing all these coaches? So I think there are a couple of teams with some very interesting chances to get to the Super Bowl. And there's also usually a couple teams that nobody expects that come out of nowhere that didn't even make the playoffs last year and all of a sudden become a contender.
And those are the ones who make it all fun. All right, Zach, we'll let you go make your Philly cheesesteak now. Thanks for joining us this morning. We appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks.
You heard it right here. The NFL returns tonight with the Dallas Cowboys taking on the Philadelphia Eagles in the NFL kickoff. Tune in 7 p.m. Eastern. That is on NBC and on Peacock.
That's going to do it for this hour of Morning News Now.
Stay with us, though. The news continues right now. Good morning. Thanks for being with us this Thursday. I'm Savannah Sellers.
I'm Joe Pryor. Right now on Morning News Now, the desperate race to contain wildfires ravaging parts of Northern California. Some of those fires sparked by thousands of recent lightning strikes and bone-dry conditions on the ground. We've got the latest, including the historic gold rush town that found itself in the direct path of the flames. Also this morning, after weeks of controversy plaguing America's top health agencies, HHS Secretary Robert F. Kennedy poised for a grilling on Capitol Hill today. More on the tough questions we're expecting from top lawmakers as a fresh wave of COVID confusion washes over states. And Florida's Surgeon General says he wants to eliminate all vaccine mandates. Plus, fashion faux pas, retail behemoth Shein in the hot seat. The site appearing to feature the likeness of accused killer Luigi Mangione modeling a button-down shirt. Savannah's got more on the company's investigation into it all and where artificial intelligence might fit into this latest controversy. And later in the hour, America's Powerball frenzy heating up. $1.7 billion now up for grabs after last night's drawing once again failed to give us a winning ticket. So what are your odds of striking it big? We're breaking down the less than promising numbers. Spoiler alert here, the odds don't actually change with each jackpot. The jackpot gets bigger, your odds are always the same no matter what. And
but the hype gets bigger.
They're low. All right. Let's start this hour with that group of fires forcing hundreds of people from their homes in Northern California.
Yeah, the fires were started by a series of lightning strikes near Yosemite National Park on Tuesday and have so far burned more than 13,000 acres. NBC News correspondent Liz Kreutz is in Chinese Camp, California. She joins us now with the latest. Hey, Liz, good morning.
Hey, guys, good morning. We're told this was a historic building from the 1800s. It is now one of many homes and buildings destroyed here in this old gold rush town. The fire was sparked by a lightning storm that tore through here, one of thousands of lightning strikes that have fueled dangerous fires across the state.
This morning, firefighters still fighting to gain any ground on the multiple fires blazing throughout northern and central California.
What is the biggest challenge right now?
The main thing is the weather that we're dealing with 15-mile-an-hour gusts of wind potentially in those steep and rugged terrain areas. That access makes it very difficult.
The series of fires, 22 in just this one complex, a product of nearly 10,000 different lightning strikes over 24 hours. The most destructive of the fires ignited late Tuesday near Yosemite National Park and quickly spread throughout Tuolumne County. The flames fueled by critically dry grass and brush, creating an eerie, smoky haze across the Sierra Nevadas and destroying several structures and forcing evacuations.
It's gone. This is what you have, what's left. And I just don't have the words for it.
In the path of the flames, the small town of Chinese Camp, miners driven out of other mining camps in the 19th century. The town housed more than 5,000 residents. And is designated as a California Historic General Store, the town's gathering spot.
What is I feel so bad when I see on the news. It's just...
Images show the history lost, an old poster.
It's such a small town with so much history.
Gone. There's not much left of the original Chinese camp now.
Burning over 4,000 acres. Dropping retardant over the flames as fire.
Now, here in California, the good news is that there have been no reported injuries or deaths from these latest fires, and firefighters have been able to get some pretty good containment of this fire and the complex of fires overnight. But this community does remain evacuated right now, and of course, the future of it uncertain with so much of this old town now burned. Guys.
All right, Liz, thank you so much. Now let's bring in our meteorologist, Angie Lassman. She's got more on the smoke, the fire in California this morning.
She's also got a look at the cold front moving into the Midwest and the Northeast this morning. Angie, hey there.
Hi there, guys. Good morning to you. Lots going on. So let's start with still what's happening with the fire conditions are up currently for California. But of course, we're looking for improved conditions for folks that are going to be fighting those fires. But across parts of Washington state, we do still have these red flag warnings. We'll see again the chance for some of those isolated dry storms to fire up today. Those will be likely. And of course, the ingredients will be there for those fires to start and spread. Now I want to head to the Eastern Pacific, where we have Hurricane Lorena, a Category 1. And normally, of course, the Eastern Pacific isn't much of a focus for the United States. But this is going to make a difference because it does bring a good bunch of moisture across parts of the Southwest. So this is going to add on some potential rainfall across parts that need it, the drought-stricken areas. But also, these are going to be slow-moving storms. So now we have the concern for flooding that's out there. So 6 million people under these flood watches as we gear up for a couple of days of some of this heavy rain. You can see the flood risk is stretched from essentially parts of California all the way through most of the southern tier of Arizona. And it's much more expansive when you look at the marginal risk. So just a heads up for folks there. Meanwhile, we also have another area that we're watching for potential development. It's going to enter likely a zone where we'll see it kind of get its act together. And we could be talking about a tropical depression here down the line as we get into this weekend, maybe sooner than that. But right now it has an 80% chance of development. So that'll be something that we watch well into next week. Meanwhile, this morning, we've also got some heavy rain that we're tracking across parts of the Midwest and eventually going to slide into the Northeast and really stretches pretty far south as well. We've had a couple of thunderstorms that were impacting probably the commute for folks from St. Louis to Cincinnati. Now it's a little drier in those regions, but again, you can see this line of thunderstorms will march east as the day goes on. So if you live in New York, Washington, by the time we get into the later parts of our evening commute, that's when you'll see that rain rotating in, and that'll be as far south as the Carolinas. So leaving us needing that umbrella. The secondary aspect of this is we've got another cold front that's going to slide through the Midwest and the Great Lakes as we get into the later parts of today and then eventually tomorrow. So keep the umbrella handy. You're going to want to have it, especially if you have any of those outdoor plans across the Northeast by Saturday. Even up into New England, you can see some periods of heavy rain. But as far south as the Tennessee Valley, we could see some of that additional rainfall. We need it. We were talking about the fires out west, but we've got a developing drought happening across the Northeast. So this additional rainfall will be quite beneficial for us here as we get through the next couple of days. Notice about an inch or so that we could pick up in some of those areas with higher amounts. So some much needed rain on the way, although I know it is not what people want to hear when we have weekend plans.
watch football. Stay
Yes,
inside
exactly.
and
Joe,
watch
good
football.
advice. Now that we are like making the fall transition,
Yes.
I'm kind of like, okay, cozy.
Right. We find some indoor activities.
Yeah, there you go. Thanks, Angie.
You got it.
On Capitol Hill, senators are gearing up to grill Health Secretary RFK Jr. today. The hearing will focus on President Trump's public health agenda for 2026, but Kennedy's also expected to face tough questions about recent turmoil at the CDC. Top officials there resigned recently following the abrupt firing of its director last week. NBC News chief Capitol Hill correspondent Ryan Nobles has the latest.
There's no doubt widespread concern in the public health community about Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s tenure as the Secretary of Health and Human Services, so much so that more than 1,000 current and former employees of the agency have sent a letter demanding he resigned. Now today on Capitol Hill, the Republican senators who voted to confirm him to this office are going to be demanding that he explain his most controversial decisions. This morning, a showdown over health care in the U.S. States across the country taking vaccine policy into their own hands, as Robert F. Kennedy Jr., the Secretary of Health and Human Services, is set to face tough questions, including from many in his own party, about America's public health agencies.
There's just been too much chaos. It's a goat rodeo over there.
Kennedy, a vaccine skeptic, is in the process of transforming the way people get vaccines, recommending more limited access to COVID shots this fall, overhauling the powerful panel that recommends which vaccines Americans should take, and firing the CDC director, leading to resignations from other top officials. Now, states making their own choices. Florida announced they would eliminate all statewide vaccine mandates. The Surgeon General speaking about mandates yesterday.
Every last one of them is wrong and drips with disdain and slavery. Who am I as a man standing here now to tell you what you should put in your body?
On the other end of the spectrum, Democrat-led states like Washington, California, and Oregon are drawing up plans to coordinate vaccine recommendations outside of the federal government. California Governor Gavin Newsom saying the CDC has become a political tool that increasingly peddles ideology instead of science. And ahead of Kennedy's hearing, over 1,000 current and former members of the Department of Health and Human Services demanding in a letter that he resign. Senators planning to grill Kennedy.
I am very concerned about and alarmed by the firing of the CDC director.
RFK should be fired.
Kennedy has rejected the criticism and is expected to defend his policy in today's hearing. He wrote in the Wall Street Journal that, quote, bureaucratic inertia, politicized science, and mission creep corroded the purpose and squandered public trust. And while Kennedy will face very tough questions from even Republican senators on this panel today, at the end of the day, they have very little control over his future as the Secretary of HHS. There's only one person who controls that, and that's President Trump. And while he'll certainly be watching today, the president has repeatedly expressed his support for his secretary.
Ryan, thank you.
Well, there's mounting pressure this morning on the federal government to release all of its files related to the Jeffrey Epstein case after yesterday's high-profile appearance by survivors at the U.S. Capitol. NBC News Now anchor Hallie Jackson spoke exclusively with some of those women earlier this week as we brought you, and she has the latest.
Hi there. Together on Capitol Hill, these survivors made clear they want transparency and accountability. And many had a message for President Trump that despite how he often describes the attention on the Epstein case, what they've suffered through is not a hoax. This morning, the public plea from some survivors of Jeffrey Epstein's abuse.
We are the Americans that you promised to protect, and we need your help.
Calling on Congress to do more, with support growing among some Republicans to try to force the release of case files related to Epstein, who died by suicide in 2019. And now, pushback from the White House.
Oh, I got a lot of pushback. I told the president this morning, I want to see him bring these women into the Oval Office, and I want him to be the hero and champion of this issue.
Marjorie Taylor Greene, one of 4 Republicans so far to split with GOP leaders by supporting a plan to force a vote to compel the Justice Department to release its documents. A move these survivors support.
Unless we learn from this history, monsters like Epstein will rise again.
Rallying at the Capitol to demand transparency and accountability.
You have a choice. Stand with the truth
or with the lies that have protected predators for decades.
A push they shared with us this week. This congressional effort, a rare political alliance between MAGA allies and Trump foes.
The tone of this was not partisan. This is actually an issue that can bring this country together.
But White House officials and House leaders say the bipartisan congressional effort is not necessary, pointing to a separate but parallel push by the Oversight Committee, which released 30,000 pages of documents this week. Most of it, Democrats say, not new.
The resolution is adopted.
That investigation getting a symbolic seal of approval in the House. At the White House, the president again downplaying the spotlight on the Epstein case.
Thousands of pages of documents have been given, but it's really a Democrat hoax because they're trying to get people to talk about something that's totally irrelevant to the success that we've had as a nation since I've been president.
Mr. President Donald J. Trump, I am a registered Republican. There is no hoax. The abuse was real.
One survivor told us this week that some of them would like to begin compiling their own list of people they often saw in Epstein's circles. And now, overnight, Congressman Massey says he and Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene would be willing to name names on the House floor. As of this morning, those lawmakers don't have quite enough support for their congressional push. But remember, there's no deadline on that this year. Back to you.
All right, Hallie, thank you.
The woman prosecutors call the ketamine queen has officially pleaded guilty in connection with the fatal overdose of actor Matthew Perry. Jasveen Sangha entered guilty pleas to 5 federal counts, including ketamine distribution and maintaining a drug-involved premises. Prosecutors say she sold dozens of vials to Perry in the weeks before his death and instructed a co-conspirator to delete messages after learning he had died. Sangha faces up to 65 years in prison. She will be sentenced on December 10th. The wildly popular global shopping site Shein is launching an investigation after removing one of its site listings. Get this, it was a shirt featured on a model who you can see here looks a lot like accused murderer Luigi Mangione. Mangione is accused of killing the United Healthcare CEO in New York City last December.
Now, Shein claims it got this picture from a third-party vendor, saying in part in a statement that's on your screen right now that has, quote, stringent standards for all listings on our platform.
Now, Savannah, I know you've done some reporting on this recently. Shein says it deleted the post immediately after discovering it. How did this even happen in the first place? How long was this even up for?
Yeah, so it's so bizarre, right, Joe? Like, this person who is obviously in federal custody, as you mentioned, he's been accused of murder, is clearly not out there modeling these shirts. So where did this come from and what exactly happened? How long was up was until people started to notice on social media. That is exactly how Shein said essentially it was discovered. It started to go viral, this photo of him. How it happened, they mentioned that third-party vendor. So what does that mean, right? Like, you go to Shein.com, they're the ones who you're going to purchase the shirt from, but of course they're getting all their inventory from somewhere. So this third-party vendor, who actually is also, it's a company called Manfinity, according to the details on that, like, since deleted page of their website with the shirt, they provide them with the shirts. They're pumping out all these different pieces of clothing. They're also providing them with essentially the marketing material. So they say that this just like went straight over to them, went up on the website. What's a little interesting, Joe, though, is this company, we did some reporting on it yesterday. It's honestly a little sketchy. It's called Manfinity. Most of the images on their own website appear to be AI generated. And in addition to that, they list a business address as one that does not exist in Detroit. And if you try to email any questions to like a support email address, it bounces right back. So not a lot of information there about that company, but Shein does get quite a bit of their inventory from it.
Obviously, this begs the question, what is Shein doing to make sure this doesn't happen again? Do we know what steps they plan to take?
Yeah, so they said that they're launching a full investigation. And as I mentioned there, they kind of said, like, this, of course, violated our standards. We took it down, right away. What they say that they're going to do, though, is kind of like step up these monitoring processes. If you go on this website, as many of our viewers probably had, I mean, there is just so much inventory on this website. It's not, you know, like a little capsule collection you're going to find at like a J. Crew or something. There is so much stuff on this website. Lots of the items are extremely cheap. This shirt was retailing for just over $10. And they say that they're going to try to step that up, that they're not just essentially going to take the product and the imagery that they get to sell those products from a company and throw them right on the website. Again, though, with that number of inventory, that's obviously going to take some manpower. So we'll see what happens.
A bigger issue here, I think, for people, shoppers might be thinking, okay, I look at something online at any sort of website and I see the image and I think that's what it looks like.
Right.
And oftentimes I find the product arrives and I'm like, this isn't quite what it looked like, which begs the question, maybe some of these images are AI generated.
Right.
What are the tips for shoppers who are trying to avoid any problems that might come with AI generated photos?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great point, Joe. I mean, how many times has that happened even before AI was an issue, right? Or just using Photoshop. Obviously, sometimes you'll see a quote-unquote model with a dress on and you just click the other color and it's clear that she didn't actually put on the other color of the dress and take the photos, right? You can tell a lot of times if you look at things like skin tone, you can kind of see like discrepancies in it, which is actually what one AI expert pointed out to us on this photo, that there's a potential. We don't know exactly if this particular image was AI generated or let's say it was maybe photoshopped from a real picture of him. But if you look at this photo, there are different discrepancies, like just in the way that the skin tone looks on the face, where it looks as though they could have taken a photo and AI would have kind of made the changes to, for example, put him in this position and wearing this particular shirt. Also, like just on some of these images, right, you could tell, like I just mentioned, if it doesn't actually seem like that shirt is fitting on a body the way that it would. So just something to look out for. I mean, I think there's no question that that shirt was actually what they were selling. It's just, is the quality going to be what you want, that type of thing, as marketing changes.
And you can always return it.
Yeah, there you go.
Right. Thanks, Van. Appreciate it.
There's much more to come on this hour of Morning News Now, including the rising death toll after a funicular in Portugal that's popular with tourists derailed yesterday. More on the investigation in just a moment.
First, after the break, the family of an 8-year-old boy who was attacked by a shark in the Florida Keys over the holiday weekend, speaking out on his condition, and the special sibling who they say helped keep him alive. Those stories and more next.
We're back now with new information on an 8-year-old who was bitten by a shark while swimming off the Florida Keys.
The young boy's family has released a statement explaining what happened and giving an update on how he's doing. NBC News correspondent Sam Brock is here with the latest. Sam, good morning.
Guys, good morning. And outlining the heroes in all of this, the reason why the boy is alive today. Certainly this was not a picture-perfect type of ending to the summer that the Burrows family had in mind. On Labor Day, they say 8-year-old Richard was severely attacked by a black-tipped shark while he was snorkeling in the turquoise waters of the Florida Keys. Now his father, David, is showing sincere appreciation for those who helped to save his life, including the boy's 10-year-old big sister, Rose.
He has he's been, the injury is significant.
Just off the beaches of Key Largo, Florida, a scary scene unfolded over the Labor Day holiday. Richard Burrows, 8 years old, found himself attacked by a black-tipped shark, according to the family, and once ashore was airlifted to a trauma center in Miami. This morning, we're learning about the many heroes involved in saving him, including a special sibling. Richard's 10-year-old sister Rose was instrumental in her brother's rescue, and both of her parents are immensely proud of the strength of character and composure she demonstrated under pressure, the family wrote in a statement. Adding, the father and 2 children were snorkeling in Key Largo Monday afternoon when a black-tipped shark rushed the trio and bit Richard on his right knee. The initial injury inflicted on Richard was significant, but due to the help of a number of people, it was contained.
Get his leg up. Keep his leg up.
In the 911 call released by the Monroe County Sheriff's Office, you can hear Richard's sister and father trying to keep him calm while attending to his injury.
Don't worry. Hold on. I'm going to make your second tourniquet. No, you're okay, Richard. You're okay.
The Burrows family offered an update on their son's status, saying Richard is recovering well from his surgery and is gaining strength by the day. He is in good spirits. Another devastating close call as the summer season comes to an end. And we do have another update here, guys. Last night I did speak with Richard's grandfather, who confirmed to me that Richard is now out of the hospital. He's doing well back at home despite a pretty gruesome injury to his leg. He added that his sister Rose is the calm in a storm and has always been that way. No doubt she helped to save her brother's life. They now ask for privacy so they can solely focus on his recovery. But Rose, the grandfather, said, no doubt about it, it's going to be a doctor or a nurse or something in healthcare, because her composure is just like a straight line.
And she's already got for her resume, her college application, this right here.
The day I saved my brother's life.
Google it. Yeah.
Love it.
Wow, incredible. Thanks.
Let's get a look at what's making news around the world, starting with the latest on that deadly derailment in Lisbon, Portugal.
NBC News international correspondent Danielle Hamamdin joins us with more and other world news in 60 seconds. Hey, Danielle, good morning.
Morning, guys. The Gloria funicular is only a 3-minute ride in Lisbon, but it is a very steep ride connecting the downtown square to a neighborhood known for its incredible views of Lisbon. What caused the funicular car to derail and crash into a building is still unclear. The death toll has now gone up to 17. All of the deceased are adults. Of the 21 who were injured, many of them were foreigners from Germany, Spain, Canada, among the countries. To Peru now, where the former president, Alejandro Toledo, was sentenced to prison, and not for the first time. He's already received a 20-year sentence for bribery and corruption in a case involving a Brazilian construction company. His new sentence, 13 years and 4 months, this time for accepting bribes from that same company. And finally, if you are a Radiohead fan, pick your city. Madrid, Bologna, London, Copenhagen, or Berlin. That's where the band will be performing for the first time since 2018. The concerts will take place in November and December. Registration for the tickets begins Friday. It'll be open for 60 hours. Good luck to all of you Radiohead fans out there.
Between Radiohead and Oasis, Gen X is just having its musical moment right now.
England is delivering.
Thanks, Danielle. Appreciate it.
We're back now with a closer look at what's making news in the world of politics this morning, starting with President Trump now suggesting sending federal troops into another major city.
NBC News politics reporter Megan Leibowitz joins us with the latest. Megan, good morning.
Hey, Joe and Savannah, good morning. Let's kick things off with New Orleans, where President Trump suggested he could send troops next. Now, yesterday he told reporters, quote, "We're going to be going to maybe Louisiana, and you have New Orleans, which has a crime problem." Now, Louisiana Governor Jeff Landry, a Republican, said he welcomed Trump's help. Remember, National Guard troops are still in D.C., and recently Trump has floated sending troops to other Democrat-run cities like Chicago and Baltimore. Next, let's head to New York City, which has its mayoral election this fall. The New York Times is reporting that Trump's advisors had talked about possibly finding an administration job for New York City Mayor Eric Adams. That would be in order to hurt frontrunner Zohran Mamdani's chances of winning. Now, a spokesperson for Adams told the New York Times that the mayor has not spoken with Trump about a job. Big picture here, some critics of Mamdani think that having both Adams and former Governor Andrew Cuomo as independent candidates could split the vote. Finally, a major setback for the White House in its fight with Harvard. That's because a federal judge yesterday ruled that the Trump administration has to unfreeze nearly $2.2 billion in federal grants to Harvard. The Trump administration said it would appeal the judge's decision. Just to rewind here for a second, the legal fight began months ago when Harvard sued the administration, which had sent a list of demands and argued that Harvard wasn't doing enough to fight anti-Semitism. And that's a look at what is making news in politics this morning.
Coming up, we've made it to September, so you obviously know what that means.
Yeah, move over pumpkin spice already and Halloween hype. Time to talk about ho-ho holiday shopping. When Morning News Now returns, we're going to dig into why some generations are tightening their belts this year, and also where President Trump's global tariffs might fit into your Christmas lists. That's next.
We're back now with Powerball fever. So the jackpot payout, it is continuing to climb this morning.
Which is how they designed it now. Millions of tickets won cash prizes in last night's Powerball drawing. Not the one we're all dreaming of. Once again, no one matched all 6 numbers, which means now you have the chance to win one of the largest grand prizes of all time.
NBC News correspondent Jesse Kirsch, man, I don't know. What do you think? Is this like a lotto ticket you won by getting to continue to be on this? Or are we over doing this and you being in this store? Tell us more about this jackpot and the fact it's not stopping people from trying.
I think pretty soon I'm going to have to start bringing a sleeping bag and just staying here because
also we see
they've
Willie
been here
behind
all week.
you.
They've been great sports. Powerball Willie, he's here. He's the man. He's been here every day. I'm trying to give this guy a day off. Someone needs to win this thing so he can get a vacation. So here's what we're looking at now, guys. $1.7 billion. That is the estimate. It is the 3rd largest of any U.S. lottery's jackpot in all time, according to Powerball. This is also now the 3rd largest Powerball of all time. So we are looking at a monstrous payout if someone can pull it off. The cash value is around $770 million. Again, that and the jackpot are pre-tax. Keep those things in mind. I already checked my ticket. to see if I won one of those cash prizes. I could tell you what happened, but I could just show you, and that would be easier and more
not
painful.
a winner.
Not a
Oh,
winner.
see,
They even printed
that's
on
mean.
the ticket. So heading into the weekend feeling pretty bummed out around here.
It should at least say,
find
like,
somewhere to, post up, because we'll be back on Monday, I'm sure.
It should at least say, sorry, you're not a winner,
Right.
or something.
If was your guys' style, do you let it pick the randoms for you?
The
or you
machine
have your
says
numbers?
sorry if you scan it, but when they print it, it's just like a blanket. You lose.
Yeah. They got to move this along here. So here's what's interesting. Whenever we do get a winner, and I'm waiting, as I said, until it reaches $1 trillion to buy a ticket. But whenever we do get it, it's always fascinating to know, like, will we know who the winner is and who it doesn't? Explain this, Jesse, because it actually depends on the state where the winner is as to whether they have to come forward or don't have to come forward, right?
Exactly. So, yeah, you need to check with your jurisdiction. We actually asked the folks at Powerball last night to try to get some clarity so we would know if someone won this morning. And they said they're not involved with that. You got to check the rules of each individual jurisdiction. So if you win, you need to look up the rules locally where you got the ticket to know what you're going to have to do to claim your prize. And by the way, we've never gone this long without someone claiming the prize. Powerball says this is going to be the 42nd consecutive drawing on Saturday, and that is the most drawings in a row we've ever seen with Powerball without someone winning that grand prize, guys.
All right, so if you do win the grand prize, obviously, like, things can get a little wild. It's like, what do I do with myself? What do I do with the money? What is the advice here, Jesse?
Yeah, before you go wild, go talk to a financial advisor, get some professional help around this, because all kinds of people might come out of the woodwork. You want to know whether you should take that lump sum or take the annuity over time, right? Suddenly you're going to have that long-lost cousin who's like, oh, yeah, I could use some money. So make sure you take care of all that and then send a check to me. Because,
there we go.
And Willie.
And Willie.
Willie and then me.
No, Willie is now a
Willie,
certified financial advisor after all of this. So you can just
Turns
ask
out.
him. Yeah.
Wait, tell him we say hi, okay? Because he's behind you. We're waving at him.
Willie, the guy, say hi.
He's like, leave me alone. All right, Jesse,
please.
Willie.
He has positioned himself right there,
Monday.
baby. Thanks, Jesse.
All right, from Main Street money to what's making waves on Wall Street this morning, President Trump is actually set to host a slew of tech giants at the White House later tonight.
CNBC's Silvana Hanau joins us with that and other financial headlines. Hey, Silvana.
Hey, Savannah. Hey, Joe. Good morning. Yeah, President Trump hosting a number of tech CEOs this evening in the newly renovated White House Rose Garden, which has been paved over to recreate the look of the patio at his Mar-a-Lago estate. So the guest list, it includes Meta CEO Mark Zuckerberg, Apple's Tim Cook, and Microsoft Satya Nadella. Now, one notable absence is Tesla CEO and former Doge chief Elon Musk. The group will also be attending an AI event hosted by First Lady Melania Trump, who's launched a challenge to encourage students to use AI to find solutions to issues in their communities. Apple plans to launch its own AI-powered web search tool next year to compete with OpenAI and Perplexity. So Bloomberg reports this new system, which will be integrated into Siri, will be able to look up information from across the internet and provide a summary to make results more digestible and accurate. Apple is working with Google to test a model Google developed to help power Siri. And Cardi B is selling the drama. Yeah, the rap star is selling limited versions of her upcoming M.I. the Drama album using viral memes of herself in court as the artwork. So earlier this week, a jury in L.A. finding Cardi B not liable for assault and battery against her former security guard who sued her for $24 million, guys.
All right, Silvana, thank you so much.
You got it. Well, the rise of generative AI has led to concerns that the technology could replace workers across industries. But some people are now kind of flipping the script through a new category of work. It's essentially fixing AI's mistakes. And even though companies are trying to use AI to eliminate some positions, a recent report from MIT found that 95% of these generative AI pilots that these companies are implementing, they're actually getting zero return on that investment.
Generative content can be riddled with mistakes that rarely make for a satisfactory final product. That is where human beings can come in. Writers are fixing AI writing mistakes. Artists are cleaning up wonky images, and software developers are fixing app glitches.
Let's bring in NBC News tech and culture reporter Angela Yang. She spoke to some of the individuals that are taking on these tasks. Angela, good morning. It's so great to have you with us. So I know you spoke with a graphic designer who says, like, business has boomed, essentially, thanks to AI. And in your reporting, you had some of these pictures where she's sort of, like, taking these, like, absolutely nonsensical words and changing them to whatever someone wanted it to say. What did she tell you about how she's working with the technology? What did you learn from her?
Yeah, absolutely. She is part of a whole cohort of freelancers who say that they've actually found more work now that there are so many companies using AI to do basically tasks that end up looking really sloppy. And so for her, it can be sometimes frustrating when clients come to her and, they feel really angry that their AI didn't give them the product that they wanted, but at the same time, they don't want to pay freelancers like her the same amount that they would have paid if they hired a graphic designer in the first place. And for her, that can be hard because sometimes these designs are so bad that she has to completely redraw them from scratch.
So when it comes to humans fixing AI, how strong is the demand for this type of work right now? What industries are we seeing it in? And is there, I guess, a feeling that this is like a part-time thing, like eventually AI will be so good this won't be needed anymore?
Yeah, that's kind of the question right now, because interestingly, across all three of the major freelance platforms, Upwork, Fiverr, Freelancer, demand has really surged this year for all types of creative work, from blog writing to graphic design to web design. So across the board, we're seeing actually a lot more demand for work that asks for sort of this human touch. And so a lot of the freelancers right now, they say that they're not super worried about their jobs going away. But of course, the concern is, what happens once AI does reach a level where it is really capable of producing these outputs without mistakes. But at the same time, a lot of these artists also say, well, sure, maybe AI can be technologically better over time, but can it really replicate that humanness that a lot of artists say that they're the only ones who can provide.
Right. Along the bottom of our screen right now, viewers might see we're calling it AI slop and make it look less sloppy, which is this term for it, that it kind of like does this sort of, but it's like this slop that ends up coming out. Do you think that is turning companies off? Like, as we do have this concern about people losing their jobs because this can take the place of a software coder or a graphic designer, are companies kind of starting to see, okay, this isn't really working that way, and is it gonna kind of reverse what we've been worried about?
Yeah, that's actually a really interesting point, is that we've seen already when brands, put out an ad that's obviously an AI video, people notice that immediately. And then if you see the comments on social media, it's like, why is this AI? People are not inclined to buy from a brand that is obviously using AI. It looks very low budget, it looks low effort, and it looks like they don't value human labor. So yeah, there is also a cost to using AI as a low-cost alternative to humans.
So interesting conversation that's not ending, and in fact just keeps changing. Angela, great to have you with us. Thank you.
All right, it might still feel early, because it is, but with September here, the holiday shopping season, I guess, is around the corner.
For me, it's not until December 23rd. For many shoppers, especially young ones, though, people are tightening their budgets and they're focusing on different types of gifts.
NBC News Chief Consumer Investigative Correspondent Vicki Nguyen is here to share the holiday shopping forecast, some tips for people. You take me as someone who maybe starts early.
First of all, you're an incredible gift giver. Let the world know that. Let America know that, because you are really spot on. I've seen the gifts you've given. I've been the recipient. Merry Christmas, by the way, to both of you.
Merry Christmas. Happy holidays. So first of all, how much do people plan to spend this holiday season?
All right, this is really interesting. The folks at PwC did a survey, and they say that consumers expect to spend an average of $1,500 this year on gifts, travel, and holiday decorations and entertainment. Sounds like a lot, and it is, but it's actually down 5% from this time last year. And you know who's driving the decline? It's Gen Z, 13 to 28-year-olds. They're feeling the pressure of rising prices, of tariffs, of economic uncertainty. The job market is a little bonkers right now, and they don't have the kind of savings that older generations do. So they're actually expecting to spend about 23% less than they did last year. That's a lot. Boomers are trying to save us. The 60 and up crowd, they're spending about 5% more. They're living in their low-interest loan houses, feeling good. As Carson said, they're like, why die with a lot of money in the bank? Let's spend on our grandkids and on ourselves, as they should.
Yeah, good for them and good for us, who are the recipients of that. Tariffs, I mean, like, you can't avoid talking about it when it comes to, especially as we've been like later in the year, will we start to feel something? How's that impacting this?
100% it is. At Wells Fargo, they did a look at what's happening across the retail market with tariffs, and they say prices are going to go up, not dramatically, modestly, but you can expect to see some price hikes. Retailers have done as much as they can to stockpile in the warehouses, get that inventory. They saw the potential impact of tariffs coming. But what we will also see are maybe fewer sales and like less deep discounts, right? So you'll still have Black Friday, but instead of seeing things that might be 40 and 50% off, some things might be 15 to 20% off because they know consumers are sensitive to price hikes. The other thing I would recommend people do is shop early. And if you see items that are likely to sell out, like those gaming consoles, the popular toys, get the items early because that's also something we will see with the earlier sales, the potential for items to sell out earlier as well because of these tariffs.
We talked about generational differences, and obviously that includes types of gifts, right?
Yes. I love this. This is the $1 million question, Joe. Everyone's always like, what do we get people? Well, PwC did the survey, and they found by age group, here's what people want. So the boomers, they just want to spend time with you, boo. You know what? Your presence is present enough. I love that adage. I'm not a boomer, but I like that. We don't need more things. Okay, so that's good. If you're a Gen Xer, 44 to 59, I fall into that category. Apparently, we like a big ticket item. We want an experience. Give it to us.
Hawaii.
Yeah, exactly. But if you can't afford that, and that's okay, we like an item that is well-made, quality, maybe a quality perfume from Toka. There's this website, newly obsessed with Al Roker and I, Quince. I'm telling you.
Quince.
Thank you. Pots and pans, cashmere sweaters,
No, but
scarves,
something's up. I know
jewelry.
you're like, I'm just like, how is this a thing?
I know, but it's high quality items for not super crazy prices. Okay, we get to millennials. Millennials, just please give me a blender, give me something for my hair, like a nice
that's
quality
so true. I'm like,
tool
I want
or
something.
appliance.
That's so me.
That's so
Literally,
you, right? That's
yes.
the 29 to 43-year-olds. Gen Z, we just want to be on trend. They want a dupe that's high quality. They don't care about brand names. Get them a Labubu. It's about little
Here's
treats.
some fake stuff.
The $30 to $50,
What about a Lafufu?
Not a Lafufu.
You can just go out on the streets in New York
Right,
here and buy
exactly.
them a fake purse, and they're like,
Well, okay,
great.
I have a story coming up on that. We do not recommend the counterfeits.
Doing a lot
Those
of
have lead
fake
in them.
purse
Okay.
But yes,
Okay.
a quality dupe, they don't care about the brand names, but give them a little taste of
All
luxury.
right. That was fun, Vicky. Thank you so
You
much.
bet.
Start your holiday
Happy holidays,
shopping.
guys.
All right.
We learned so much about Vicky in those few moments.
Coming up, he is a tennis icon who is the name and face behind one of the world's most popular pair of kicks ever.
Yeah, but for Hall of Famer Stan Smith, his life off the court might now be a little more soulful. We are going to sit down with the legend himself. It's all about his new documentary and the U.S. Open, of course. That's coming up next. All right, that was a clip from a new documentary about the life and rise of tennis icon Stan Smith. He is, of course, the man who gave his name to one of the most popular sneakers of all time.
Smith is also a tennis legend, a Hall of Famer, and former world #1 who has won both the U.S. Open and Wimbledon. And that's not all. Some would say his biggest achievement happened off the court through his humanitarian work supporting a large number of causes.
We are so excited to have the man himself, Stan the Man, Stan Smith, here in studio with us. Stan, good morning.
It's nice to be here.
We are so excited to get to talk with you, and congratulations on this documentary streaming on Hulu and ESPN right in time for when we're all buzzing about tennis, U.S. Open.
Yeah.
Tell us more about it, more than what we just saw in that clip, and what it's meant to have your life chronicled in this way.
Well, it's a strange thing. You know, I did a book called Stan Smith, Some People Think I'm a Shoe.
Yeah.
And Spring Hill with LeBron James and Maverick Carter saw it, and they said, we'd like to do a documentary. And so it's awkward to have a documentary done on your life. And you know,
Is it?
We had a great director, Danny Lee, who tried to put it all together. You know, there's so many different elements of my life. And so it was a fun process, and they had to dig through some, old videos and things like that to make it all happen. And they did a pretty good job, putting it all together and covering those different parts of my life.
Mm-hmm. When you see old things like that, when you watch yourself on screen like that, what's it like for you?
Very strange. My wife has this little journal she did about how, she'd written some things down when we first met and all that sort of thing. So that's part of that
Good stuff,
documentary.
right?
It was it was funny stuff. So the documentary is kind of funny. You'll smile, you'll laugh, and then you'll reflect on some things. The '68 year was highlighted, and of course Arthur Ashe and his involvement, this young boy from South Africa, and then just there's some tears, I'm sure, if you can see the documentary.
Yeah. We've got to talk about the Open with you. I mean, New York is buzzing about it. I was there with you, which is crazy the other day. Joe's been going. I mean, it's just so wonderful when you live in New York. We're so blessed that it's here. You won your first Grand Slam singles title at the tournament in 1971. I actually want to specifically ask you right now about women's, because we have what an exciting four that are left. 2 Americans, one that actually you have a connection to, Jessie Pegula. You call her Jessie, who's been through your academy. Tell us what you're watching for here.
Yeah, Jess will be playing Sabalenka, who she lost to in the finals last year. And she made a big breakthrough last year. She'd been in the quarters of all the majors. And all of a sudden, she won that quarterfinal match in the semis, and she won that semis match. So she's going to have a rematch tonight. And we're hoping it's going to be a little bit like the Sabalenka, like the Swiatek and Anisimova, where Anisimova was embarrassed at the Wimbledon final, 6-0, 6-0. And then she turned the tables yesterday and beat her 6-3, 6-4. So we're hoping that might happen with this turning around with Sabalenka and Jess in that first match. And then, of course, you've got Anisimova again, the other one against Osaka. So both those matches are going to be barn burners, and that's tonight.
Barn burners.
So it's going to be very special.
You know, we have to ask you about what is on your feet right now, your shoes, which are still an icon. We're talking about the fact that you can wear these with that outfit right now, and nothing's ever been cooler than that look now. But when you made these, did you ever think that they would become what they became and what they still are today?
Well, I thought it'd be maybe a 5-year relationship with Adidas, but it just kind of kept going, and then they actually took it off the market 12 and 13, and then relaunched it in 14, and then it just went crazy around the world. And so it's a cool thing. The thing I like the most is when a mother-daughter, are wearing the shoes, because most daughters would not be caught dead wearing what their mother wears. And so I've seen that quite a bit, even the daughter-father, and of course it's both men and women, and it's been fun to see. The key, I think, to Adidas is the collaborations they've had. They started with Ralph Simmons and then Pharrell Williams and Stella McCartney. They've been different collaborations that have been, kind of, just off for about 3 or 4 months and moving on to another one.
Wow. Stan Smith, new documentary, book. I mean, you have so many books, your shoes. We're so lucky to have you here, especially at a time like this during the U.S. Open. Thank you very much for stopping by.
Well, thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Awesome.
And enjoy the Open.
I was just going to tell you the same thing, because it's been some good tennis so far.
Great weekend.
Thank you so much.
That is going to do it for this hour of Morning News Now.
Stay with us, though. The news continues right now.
We thank you for watching, and remember, stay updated on breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or watch live on our YouTube channel.